All right, welcome back to My Mom's Basement, ladies and gentlemen. I am here with Aaron Stanford, and we are here on the week Deadpool and Wolverine comes out. This will come out about a month from now. So if you're listening to this, we are about a month out, but if you're listening to it, we're actually a week out. And it comes out July 26th. Aaron Stanford will be back as Pyro. And this was one of the things that made people so excited when we saw the trailer, because the trailer obviously doesn't want to give away too much, but they do
Yeah.
want to make us excited and let us know that characters will be returning from the past X-Men movies and stuff. So I assume when that trailer first dropped, was the reaction that you got awesome?
Yeah, I'm incredibly I'm moved that people remember Pyro. You know, it was 20 years ago, and to hear that people not only remember him but are excited, about seeing him again, and hearing a lot of people online talking about how important the character was to them, and a lot, Pyro was my favorite character, and this and hearing all that, it's nice, man. It's nice to hear that you touched people, that you made an impression on people. Yeah, know, the reaction has been very, very rewarding.
And I want to talk about Deadpool and Wolverine, obviously. It's the movie this summer. Everyone can't wait for it. But I'd love to go back to the original X-Men movies because
Mhm.
on this podcast, in anticipation for Deadpool and Wolverine, we've gone back and we're doing episodes on each one and really breaking
Oh,
them
cool.
down. And we read a lot about the X2 production and how they had a lot planned. Some stuff got cut, some stuff had to be, replaced or scenes were rearranged. Was the set of X2 as, I guess, hectic as it reads now, or looking back, was it smooth sailing?
From I can only speak, you know, about what I witnessed myself, and I think I have heard some of the scuttlebutt, about how hectic the set was, and tensions were definitely there were definitely very 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 tense moments, as there are on any, well, first of all, anything I worked on, anything I've ever worked on, like it's a pressure cooker, and with a film as big as X2, there's a lot of money involved, a lot of big personalities involved, and a lot of cooks in the kitchen and people fighting over, whose vision was it going to be, and how are they going to slice up the pie, and all the rest of that. So you definitely felt all that tension because it's high stakes, and it's honestly it's normal.
Yeah.
I've seen that there's very few sets where you don't feel that tension, and a lot of the time if you don't, the movie is not very good because people aren't they're not invested enough, and they're not tense enough. They're not trying hard enough.
It means
So
you care, right?
you need to care, and
Yeah.
anytime you're passionate about something, you're gonna run into conflict. So yes, I think that stuff did happen. But from my perspective, wasn't anything out of the ordinary, and it didn't affect, or blow up any of the days that I was working or I was on set.
Could you sense that this movie was going to be something special when you were making it? Obviously, comic book movies weren't what they are today, but it felt like
Yeah.
the first one did kind of kick down the door in a big way for Marvel and show that the X-Men can be these very serious characters and you can make a grounded universe. Now making X2, which people still consider to this day one of the best sequels of all time, did you
Yeah.
sense that scale?
I certainly sensed the scale of it. Everybody knew how big the movie was going to be, and it ended up being even bigger than they thought it would. And very much being aware of the desire, as you just said, to be taken seriously, and to elevate this movie, because prior to this, when I was growing up, a lot of the comic book films, they were considered very corny and hokey, and really just for kids. A lot of them, with a couple rare exceptions. And at this time, X-Men definitely wanted to be taken seriously, and you see that reflected in the writing. You see that reflected in a lot of the design choices, even something as simple as saying, like, okay, well, we're going to be careful here. We're not going to put them in the brightly, in the bright primary colored costumes, they're going to be in muted black leather, and they'll look cool, and people won't be turned off by that. So there was all that. But yeah, but most importantly, they really wanted it to be elevated in terms of content, and they really wanted to use the X-Men story, as an allegory, and tell the story of this marginalized people struggling for equality, for equal rights, and have it speak to many different marginalized groups. Obviously, the LGBTQ community. Excuse me. I'm sorry, I screwed that up. Was foremost in that. You see it in the very famous scene between Iceman and his parents, where they ask, have you ever tried not being a mutant? And that was a very clear metaphor at that time for everybody watching it, and it was one of the first times that people had seen anything like that in a comic book movie.
Yeah. What was your knowledge or fandom of the X-Men like going into this? Were you aware of the X-Men? Were you a comic book fan, an X-Men fan before you got the role as Pyro?
Yeah, I was a comic book fan. I had read some of the X-Men stuff. I was more into I'd read a lot of underground comics growing up.
Oh, really?
And I had read like I was a big fan of Alan Moore. I was a big fan
Nice.
of Garth Ennis. So I was aware of the X-Men universe, and I was a big fan of Wolverine, because basically I mean, I don't know if you're not going to find many people who weren't a big fan of Wolverine. There was just something about that character that just really drew you. Um, so I knew the universe. I wouldn't say I was a scholar. I didn't know every detail of it, but I knew the world going into it. And yeah, I was very excited to see what they did with it, and where they remained faithful, and where they diverted a little bit to achieve what they wanted to achieve.
And what was the casting process like, if I may ask? Like, was it screen tests with other actors? Was it just you in a room with a director and producers? Any of that?
Yeah. um, Definitely no other actors there. It was the funny thing about the so it was I remember it was with the producer Lauren Schuler Donner. It was just she and I in a room with a video camera, and it was one of those auditions that we get sometimes where you look at, it's a single page, and it's like 6 words, and you're just like, what am I supposed to do with this? I don't know. It was The line was, remember all those bad mutants you hear about on the news? I'm the worst one. That was the that's it. That
That's
was
your
the
whole
whole line.
audition? Just nail
That was
that
the
line?
whole audition. So, and you run into that a lot. They'll audition you with action sequences. So of course, the page had all the action. Talking about Pyro steps onto the porch. He squares off with the police. He, shoots his hand forward. A fireball flies out. The cop car flies up in the air, spins around, explodes, and then here's your line. So you're in like a small room trying, like, how am I going to realize this, and how do I nail this? How do you land this? So I went in, first of all, I went in like, I didn't believe there was any chance in hell that I was getting this role. It just didn't feel. I felt miscast. I didn't miscast. I didn't think it was right for me. I had never done a big movie before. I was in New York City. I was doing independent film. I was doing off Broadway theater. It seemed, it was like a pipe dream. It just seemed silly. So I wasn't very worried about it, and because I was like, there's no way I'm getting this. So I'm just going to go in and be loose. So I went in. I did my thing. I went through the actions. I read my line. And then Lauren said, okay, great. So what we're doing is, we're just having people, because obviously it's a short scene. We're having people improv a little bit at the end, so, oh, okay, great. So now I have to, what is he? He's just blowing up a bunch of cop cars. So what's the improv here? So I had no idea so, I take a couple of moments between takes to figure it out, and go through the scene again. shoot the fireballs, deliver the line, all the dangerous mutants. And then I'm like, okay, so there's a bunch of cops here and I want to taunt them. How am I going to taunt these cops? And I was a big fan of the television show, the reality TV show Cops, where they do ride-alongs with the
Yep.
police. So I said, all right, I'm going to taunt. I'll sing the theme song to the TV show Cops, bad boys, what you gonna do? So that's what I did. And so I sang the theme song to Cops, felt humiliated, walked out of the room, red in the face, took the elevator down. And then lo and behold, later on, I got the role. And during the shooting process, one of the writers, Mike Doherty, came up to me and he told me, he said, I want to tell you, the Bad Boys, song that you did, that's what got you the part. So it's like, all
That's an
right,
awesome story.
oh man, yeah.
That's really cool. And then what was
So
it
it's
like
funny.
actually filming that scene on the porch? Like you have these world-class actors around you, obviously
Yeah.
huge action movie blockbuster set pieces, get to watch explosions. Was it cool to see that realized too?
I mean, yes. Again, I had never done anything like this. So since then I've done quite a bit of like action. I've seen a lot of, I've fired a lot of guns, seen a lot of explosions, done all that stuff, and I had never even seen any kind of pyrotechnics before in my life. So we were on the porch getting ready to do the scene, and they'd given me my trademark pyro lighter with the jaws
Such a
insignia
cool
on
lighter.
it.
Yeah.
And I had figured out, they had told, they're like, now figure out how you're going to do, we don't know how he does the fire. How does he do it? So I had, gone in the memory bank to, okay, I'm like, what am I going to do? So maybe it's some sort of like Tai Chi thing. And, maybe it's sort of, maybe it's like Street Fighter, where they like wind up and grab the fire and yeah, like do one
Yeah.
of those. So that's what I went with. And so it was just doing the Tai Chi stuff and to absolutely nothing. So you have to understand, like, whenever you're shooting this stuff, you feel very silly because
Yeah.
you're just playing pretend. And, so I was playing pretend with my Tai Chi and how are you and all the rest of that. And anyway, so then it comes time for the actual pyrotechnics, and they're like, okay, so just be prepared. We got the cop car. There's a 1,000-pound steel flywheel hooked up to the bottom of it, so it's gonna get bounced in the air. It's gonna flip around. There's gonna be a big, gigantic explosion and fireball. But you're totally safe, so don't worry. So like, okay, great. This sounds like I'm excited for this. So we set up for the shot. Pyrotechnics get set. Everyone scurries away, run away. And then I noticed that like behind me, like the cameraman is like fading back and he's like, 20 feet behind me. Everyone else fades back. All these plexiglass blast shields go up in front of everybody. And it's just me in front on the porch in front of this car that's about to explode because they need like the over the shoulder
Yeah.
shot. So, I'm panicking, being like, how big is this explosion going to be? So anyway, it blows up, and it was, you can actually see me flinch in the movie.
Really.
I shoot the fire, the cop car goes up, boom, and you see like just my shoulders like flinch because it was just an enormous explosion. I was pretty sure I was gonna die because everybody was well behind me, but obviously I'm alive and well. So everything worked out just fine. But yeah, it was a really fun experience.
And I interview a lot of wrestlers on this show. I'm a huge pro wrestling fan, and all of the wrestlers say being the heel is the most fun. They love being the bad guy. It just gives you a little more freedom to do what you want. Do you feel
Yeah.
that way as an actor, where obviously Pyro gets to turn heel in this movie and be a real bad guy in the next one, meeting up with Bobby
Yeah.
at the protest and all that? When we recapped the movies, we were like, oh man, it's easy to forget how good Pyro is as a villain because he is just you start shaking your fist at the screen like you were one of us. Why did you abandon us? You went with Magneto.
No, there definitely is that element, and yes, of course it's fun to be, the bad guy. There's no doubt about that. What I love more than to be the bad guy is to be an anti-hero, and to me, being the actor who worked on it, your job is always to understand where your character is coming from, to sort of be his defense attorney, and
Mhm. You got to
makes sense
rationalize his decisions, right?
makes sense of why he's behaving like this because nobody thinks they're the bad guy, right?
Yeah.
So
Even Magneto, he's the perfect example in fiction.
yeah, and
Like
Magneto, like
you could see where he's coming from.
you can see where he's coming from, So
Yeah.
so for Pyro, it's the same thing. I think it's this guy who's he's experienced a lot of abuse. He's experienced a lot of pain. They don't get deeply into the specifics of his backstory, but they have this wonderful little moment where he's staring at a picture of somebody else's happy family on a mantle. And you can see that there's pain there, and he clutches his lighter close to him as like a
Yeah.
security. So for me, I had a whole backstory, built up where, Pyro had lost his family over what he was, that he was a mutant and that his family had rejected him and disowned him and turned him into an orphan. So the people that he was meant to count on and the people that he loved most and expected love from completely rejected him, and that hardens you, and it puts a lot of pain and grief in there, and a lot of that pain and grief often comes out as rage. So to me, he was a very wounded, angry person, and he was seduced by Magneto into becoming an extremist or a radical activist extremist, who decided that he had been very hurt by the world that hurt him, and he was gonna hurt those people who hurt him, and
Yeah.
that was where he was coming from. So for me, that's you know that's Pyro. And
Yeah.
but to many people watching the movie, I think you're right. I think he just does come off sort of as the heel and as the jerk. I remember I was in an Uber one time or something, and the driver recognized me. Where do I know you from? It was well, it's probably X-Men is what you know me from. He's like, oh yeah, you were the asshole. Like,
But you
yeah,
were the cool asshole too. There's such a
fair
cool
enough. Yeah,
character with the lighter,
I guess that's right. Yeah.
with the powers. Like Pyro's such a cool character that when he falls to
Yeah.
Magneto, it hurts even more. You're like, you were the cool. I remember being like 4 years old watching the movie and being like, I want that lighter. And my mom being like, you don't need a lighter. I promise you. Like,
Yes.
did you keep the lighter?
Pyro,
Did you get to keep any of
inspiring a
the
generation of kids to play with fire. Yeah.
did you get to keep any of the lighters?
I got that light. I
That's
did get the light.
awesome. I
Yeah.
was wondering because that seems like the sort of thing where if you play Pyro, I feel like the prop person on set should be like, "Hey, that's your lighter. You should get to
I
keep
did get
that."
the
Did it
lighter.
did it
Yeah.
ruin lighters for you almost? Like when you light like birthday candles on a cake or something, are people like,
I did used to get that. That doesn't happen any
Yeah.
time. That maybe that's going to start up again. But yes,
Just wait for Deadpool and Wolverine to drop.
but
Yeah.
every once in a while, yes, there would be like, yes, if I, was, out camping, lighting a campfire or something. Huh?
Why don't you just do it with your hands, like shit like
Yeah.
that?
So, yes.
But now talking Deadpool and Wolverine, and I know that you probably can't say much. I wouldn't be surprised if the Disney Marvel snipers are outside your window right now listening in. Like, you better not say
Indeed. Yeah,
anything.
there's like a laser sight. I can see it just sort of like,
Yes,
wobbling around.
Feige's watching, always
Yeah.
watching. I know that. But getting the call and actually getting to work with Sean Levy, who's an awesome director, he's done so much at this point. I'm curious as to what the whole experience was like for you.
Yeah. I mean, it was a total shock out of the clear blue sky. Last thing in the world I was expecting. It's been
Really?
20
Was it?
years. Yes,
I
I was
was
dead.
wondering when they announced like Deadpool and Wolverine and say we're bringing back X-Men people. I was wondering in the back of your mind where you're like, maybe they want Pyro back now.
Not even for a second. No,
Wow.
the last time I thought they might bring Pyro back was Days of Future Past because they had brought a lot of the other cast members back, and they just didn't. They decided not to bring him back for whatever reason. So that was the last time I really thought like he might, maybe he's not done. So it had been so long. There had been so many iterations, so many X-Men movies. So I was just like, nope, he got headbutted by Iceman, and that's the end of him. And so yeah, last thing in the world I expected, and started getting phone calls and from MCU, my agents telling me that they're calling around. They were not specific about what they want, but they want to know what you're up to and are you available and this and that. So I have no idea what this could be, but beginning to form suspicions, especially when they were like, "We want to put you on a Zoom with Sean Levy," and then things began to click into place, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, I think I know what this is." And so we got on the Zoom and started talking, and indeed he confirmed. He's like, "Yes, we want to resurrect Pyro for Deadpool 3, and is that something you would be interested in?" And obviously I said absolutely. So yeah, it's been a thrill. It's just a really great windfall.
And obviously, I haven't seen the movie. Nobody has, so I have
Mm.
no idea what your scenes consist of, and I can't like ask you, oh, did you work with so and so? Did you work? You'll get shot.
Yeah,
Sean is the one I know you did work with, but your
yeah.
costume in the trailer also looks very cool. Did you have
Yeah.
any input on the costume, or what was your first reaction
Oh,
to seeing, oh,
absolutely
this is
not.
what he looks like now?
Absolutely no input, but completely thrilled.
Cool,
Totally
right? The goggles, like that's a sweet look.
goggles are awesome. The whole look for Pyro is from the XMen Ultimates series, and there's a Ultimate Pyro, and he's this different, alternate version of himself. He's gone insane. He's burned over all of his face and all of his body from playing with fire all these years, and he's in this like firebug outfit. So he's got the red goggles, and he's got this sort of like anti-fireman outfit, and that's what they had in the movie. That like the snaps on the outfit, they look
Yeah,
like the snaps from a fireman outfit. So he's like the anti-fireman, and it's built from a very thick. It feels like like a thick fireproof material, like a fireman would have, because Pyro's not immune to
yeah.
fire. He has to be careful how he uses it. So to have that was really cool, because I don't know how familiar you are with the old movies, but famously Pyro never had any
You don't
kind
get
of
to
a
wear a
gear.
super suit. Yeah,
He didn't have it. He was in his pajamas for most of it, and then he was in sweatpants and a t-shirt, and in the other one he was in like Doc Martin boots and
yeah.
a leather jacket. So he never had the proper outfit. So when I went in to get fitted for this thing, which was great, and they do it, like things have evolved so much since the old movies, and they're so like they've made so many of these movies, and they know exactly how to do it and exactly how to construct the suits, and they measure like when you go to get fitted for one of these super suits, they measure like every square centimeter of your body to make sure that like the tape measure goes here. It's just
Yeah.
like they want it to be absolutely perfect. So yeah, it was super cool, and stepping into that was great. Strapping on the goggles and just kind of embodying this alternate Pyro, who is a continuation of the old Pyro from the X-Men movies, but obviously like he's been through a hell of a lot since then. Um,
Yeah.
so super cool.
Super cool. I can't wait for the movie. I know I speak for everyone listening when I say we'll be there on release day, no matter what. Like I would miss
People are
the
pumped.
birth of my firstborn son for Deadpool and Wolverine. And I don't have a firstborn son, but I would miss that. That's how excited
That's how
nerds are
much
for
you
this
love it.
movie.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much for the time. Hearing all those stories is really, really cool for an X-Men fan like me. So I can't wait to see you
Absolutely.
in Deadpool and Wolverine.
My pleasure, man. Thank you for having me, and you won't be disappointed. It's going to be a great movie.